We often think that when a career ends, everything ends. That when you hang up the jersey, the fire goes out. That passion dies with the last contract, the last show, the final performance. But that's not true. Some flames, they keep burning, even after you leave the arena. You can walk away from a title and still love what you do, still feel it in your chest, still live it, just differently. It's not the end of a story. It's just a change of role. Welcome to Pure Exchange. Welcome back to Pure Exchange. Today, I want to take a moment to clarify something. Some I may not have expressed clearly enough in episode 1. In that first episode, I talked about the end of my professional basketball career. But I realized some of you may have taken that to mean I stopped playing altogether. Let me be clear. Yes, I ended my career as a pro, but I didn't walk away from the game. I still play. I still sweat. I still feel that energy. But now, I live it differently. I stepped away from the pro world, the contracts, the performance expectations, the outside pressure. But basketball is still part of me. It still runs through my veins. It still helps me stay grounded, stay connected to who I am. And I think it's important to say that because when we talk about transitions, career shifts, reinventions, we often lack nuance. We talk about the end like it's a clean break, like you either keep going at full speed or you quit completely. But the truth is way more layered than that. And that's what I want to explore with you today, because maybe you've also walked away from something, a job, a title, a role in a team, a company, a system. And maybe now you're wondering, do I still have the right to love what I used to do? Do I still belong in that world if I'm no longer official? Let me tell you, I ask myself all those same questions. And what I've come to understand is this. You can let go of the role without letting go of who you are. You can close a chapter in your career without closing your heart to what you love. You can keep going differently, in your own rhythm, in your own way. This episode is for anyone trying to reconnect with their passion, without pressure, without performance, without permission. It's for the former pros, but also for former artists, former teachers, former managers, creators, helpers, doers. For anyone who's ever thought, am I allowed to keep loving this even if I'm no longer doing it like before? The answer is yes, because you're never truly former when it's still alive inside you. You know, when people hear career change or career ending, they often imagine it like flipping a switch, like you close a chapter and seal it shut forever, like you're supposed to walk away clean and never look back. But honestly, it's never that simple. When I stepped away from professional basketball, I wasn't quitting the game. I was ending a certain kind of relationship with the game. I walked away from the pressure of high-level performance, the constant need to prove something, the weekly expectations, the judgment of coaches, fans, managers, the double training sessions, the travel every other weekend, the lifestyle. But the game itself, the feel of the court, the sound of the ball hitting the floor, the adrenaline, the joy, the rhythm of the game, I didn't throw that away. In fact, I've rediscovered it. I'm savoring it. I'm experiencing it with less pressure and way more presence. And that's what I want to pass on to you. Sometimes you leave the structure, but not the thing itself. You can step away from a career and still keep the love. You can say goodbye to a job without letting go of the passion it held. And this doesn't just apply to sports. You might be a former teacher who still loves to guide and uplift, a former manager who still thrives on bringing people together, a former musician who still finds peace playing at home, an entrepreneur who closed their business but never lost their creativity. What often stops us is other people's gaze, that pressure to move on completely. Like it's either go all in or disappear entirely. But in between those extremes, there's a wide open space, a space where you can still be you, even if it's not your job anymore. You know, when I first stepped away from professional basketball, I thought I had left the pressure behind. But deep down, I hadn't. That first season after retiring, I struggled. Not with the game itself, but with the weight I was still carrying on my shoulders. I still felt like I had to be the pro, the example, the guy who was perfect, disciplined, flawless at every moment, even though no one around me was asking for that. All they wanted was for me to just play, to show up, to enjoy it. But I couldn't let it go. Not yet. And then one day, I had a conversation with my coach. Nothing dramatic, just a simple, honest conversation. And he said something that changed everything for me. You're fighting the wrong battle. Those words hit me right in the chest. I realized I was stuck trying to live up to a standard that no longer served me, a standard that was no longer even relevant. That's when it clicked. The real reason I had fallen in love with basketball, it wasn't about contracts or trophies or being seen a certain way. It was about the pure joy of playing, the feeling of being on the court, moving, creating, competing. For the love of it, not for the performance. And from that day on, everything changed. I started playing lighter, smiling more, taking risks without overthinking, letting go of the need to be perfect, and reconnecting to the simple passion that brought me there in the first place. That day, I realized something. I'm still a player, not a pro, but a player, still in love with the game, still connected to the fire it lit inside me. And it felt so good to know I had permission to continue, to keep showing up, just differently. No explanation needed, no labels required. So if you're in a season of transition, if you've closed a chapter, left a role, stepped off the path, ask yourself this. What if the thing I loved didn't have to disappear? What if it could live on, just in a new form, on my own terms? Because sometimes what you're walking away from isn't the passion. It's just a version of it you knew at that moment in your life. And once you realize that, everything starts to open up again. We live in a world that teaches us something pretty early on, that your personal value is directly tied to your productivity, that if you're good at something, then you have to turn it into a job. And if you don't turn it into a job, then it somehow matters less legit, less meaningful, less important. But who said that? Do you really need a contract to be a real artist? Do you need a paycheck to prove your passion has value? The answer is no. A passion is something you live, something you feel, something you practice, whether it earns you money or not, whether it's official or not. Today, I still play basketball, but not to impress anyone, not to prove anything, not to win contracts. And to be honest, there are moments when I enjoy it more now than I ever did as a pro, because there's no pressure, no scoreboard that defines my worth, no crowd expecting results, just me in the moment, feeling the game, loving it for what it is. And I'll say this out loud. I might be more of a player today than I was at certain points in my career, because now I play by choice, not by obligations. I'll never forget the end of a season about 3 years ago, one of my last seasons as a pro. At that point, my team was fighting to avoid relegation. We were backed into a corner. Every game felt like a battle for survival. And I remember stepping up. I actively helped us win the critical games we needed. We made it. We stayed up. On paper, success. Performance was there. Intensity was there. The results were there. But the joy, the pure love for the game, gone. I was performing, but I wasn't feeling. I was delivering, but I wasn't living it. It was like playing with the lights off inside. And now, fast forward to this season, a game that technically didn't have much at stake, no huge consequences, no pressure. And yet, I loved every second of it. Not because it was easy, not because I dominated, but because I was free. Free to just play. free to enjoy the rhythm, the flow, the connection. That's the difference. That's the line between the professional world and everything else. In the pro world, sometimes you win, but you lose yourself in the process. Outside of it, you can rediscover the game for what it always was, a source of joy, a place where you belong without needing to perform to be worthy. And honestly, that's the kind of victory that matters more to me now. And now, let me ask you something. Is there something you used to love that you let go of because it didn't make you any money? Because it didn't serve a purpose? Maybe you used to draw, or write, or dance, or teach, or build. And over time, you just packed it away, told yourself it wasn't useful anymore, that it didn't count. But if it made you feel alive, if it grounded you, then it does count. Maybe not on your resume, but deep inside where it matters more. Okay, let's do something for a second. Close your eyes. Think back to a time when you were younger, doing something just because you loved it, something that made you lose track of time. What was it? That moment, that memory, it holds a truth. Not about your skills, not about your productivity, but about your essence. And here's the part that no one tells us. You don't have to be the best to keep going. You don't have to monetize it. You don't need an audience. You just need it to feed you. And if one day you decide to grow it into something bigger, cool. But even if it stays small and sacred, even if it lives in your heart, in your home, and nowhere else, that's beautiful too. So next time someone asks you, hey, are you still doing that thing? And your first instinct is to say, nah, it's over. Take a pause, take a moment. Ask yourself, is it really over? Or did I just stop doing it that way? Because passion and profession, they can work together, but they can also live apart. And in both cases, they are real, they are worthy, and they are enough. At some point in any transition, there's a question that shows up, and it can be a scary one. Does what I loved still have a place in my life? But maybe that's not the question we should be asking. Maybe the better question is, what new place can I create for what I loved? Because here's the thing, what you loved in your old life wasn't always the role or the job title or the external success. It was the energy, the emotion, the way it made you feel like yourself. And that feeling, you can find it again, just in a different form. Take me, for example. What I loved about playing professional basketball beyond the game itself was the intensity, the team dynamic, the push towards something bigger, the discipline in preparing, the thrill of rising to a challenge. And today, I feel those same things when I create content, build this podcast, work on my projects, show up fully in my role as a father with presence and purpose. And you know what's wild? I thought that intensity I loved, the one from my pro basketball days, was tied to the court, to the competition, to the pressure of the game. But then came this new project, this podcast. From the very first moment I started planning it, I felt something stirring inside me. That same focus, that same butterflies in the stomach feeling, that same energy building up as I worked, refined, prepared. I wasn't running plays or studying opponents. I was writing scripts, recording, editing, creating a whole new world from scratch. And yet, it felt just as intense, just as real. There were late nights, moments of doubt, moments of excitement. And when I finally hit publish on that first episode, I felt the same rush I used to feel stepping onto the court before a big game. Heart racing, mind sharp, soul wide open. And that's when it truly sank in. It wasn't the basketball court that made me feel alive. It was the act of showing up fully, of putting my heart into something that mattered to me, of taking risks, embracing the unknown, and owning my space. And that fire, it can live in any arena, as long as you're willing to bring yourself to it. And that's when it clicked for me. I didn't need to replicate my past. I needed to rechannel it. Sometimes it's not about doing the same thing in a new way. It's about finding a new thing that lights up the same spark. And heads up, it might feel weird at first. Sometimes it feels like you left it all behind. But in truth, you just change tools, change the environment, change the stage, but not the essence. And that shift, it requires permission from others, sure, but mostly from yourself. Because if you don't give yourself that space, you fall into two different traps. You either deny yourself the right to ever feel that passion again, or you try to recreate the exact same version of your past and you end up stuck. But in between those extremes is freedom, a space where you can pass on what you've learned, explore new forms of the same love, become a mentor, a creator, a teacher, a guide, or just keep doing it for you. I know ex-pros who became coaches, former artists who turned to healing work, ex-managers now leading nonprofits, athletes making content, building communities, even finding peace in gardening or woodworking. It's not about repeating the role. It's about honoring the intention behind it. And that right there is what reinventing your relationship means. Not copy pasting your past, but taking the pieces that still matter and building something new with them. All right, let's try to do some. Write down 3 things you love most about your old role, career, or activity. Then ask yourself, where could those 3 things show up in your current life or a life you want to build? Because what you loved back then could become the foundation for what you create next. And if you could give yourself permission to stop doing it the old way, you might just unlock something way more fulfilling, something more aligned, more evolved, more you. All right, so far, I've told you about my journey, about the difference between ending a career and letting go of a passion. But now, I want to turn the mic towards you because this podcast is not about my story. It's about creating space for your reflection, a moment to pause, to breathe, to ask yourself the real questions. So here it is. What do you want to keep alive in your life? Not necessarily the same job, not the same schedule, not even the same identity, but what part of you deserves to keep shining? What do you want to hold on to even after the transition? Here's the thing. Most of us leave a career, a role, a title, and we think we have to start over. Like we need to become a whole new person, but that's rarely the case. Often what we lived before holds gold, experiences, strength, insights, pieces of ourselves we can carry forward if we take the time to notice them. So maybe it's time to flip the question. Instead of asking, what am I not doing anymore? Try asking, what do I still want to keep doing my way? And to help you explore that, I want to offer you 2 exercises. You might remember the first one from episode 1, but it's so valuable, I'm bringing it back. So exercise 1, the strength map. Grab a piece of paper and draw 3 columns. Column 1, what you were great at in your previous role, sport, passion. Column 2, what does that say about you? You know, your values, your strength, your qualities, your drivers. And column 3, how could that still exist in your life today, differently, at your pace? This tool helps you reconnect to your true value, even if your context has changed. It shows you that not everything needs to be discarded. You can rebuild with what's already inside you, but maybe you're not in the mood to analyze. Maybe you don't want columns or logic. Maybe you just want to feel again, to reconnect with a part of you that got quiet, that's been waiting to resurface. If that's where you are, here's a second exercise, the sensory flashback. All right, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and think of a moment, any moment, when you were doing something you truly loved, something that made you feel truly alive, not for approval, not for money, not for success, just for the joy of it. Got it? Now, go deeper. Where were you? What did you hear? What did your body feel like? Were you smiling? Were you focused? Were you free? that memory, it's yours. It's real. And it's a clue. Because maybe what you were chasing back then wasn't just an activity. It was a stage of being. And now the real question becomes, how can I reconnect with that feeling in my life today? Even just a little, even differently, even somewhere new. Because it's not always about the exact activity. It's about the frequency it brought out in you. Take your time. Try them at your own pace. They don't demand anything from you except honesty. And trust me, that's already huge. And to be real with you, when I did those exercises myself, something clicked. I realized that what I love most wasn't tied to being a professional. It was about feeling connected, pushing my own limits, sharing real energy, and growing through every challenge. And that doesn't belong to any one title or role. It's part of me. It's part of who I am, no matter where life takes me. Doing these exercises reminded me I hadn't lost myself. I was just being called to express myself differently. And that simple shift in perspective opened a whole new chapter for me. Maybe it will for you too. So here we are at the end of this episode. And if there's one thing I hope you take away is this: you can let go of a role without letting go of who you are. You can end a career without killing the fire that once lit you up. You can still move forward with joy, with depth, with meaning, just in a new form. Because your passion is not tied to a title. It's not trapped inside a job description. It doesn't expire when a contract ends. Your passion is a part of you. And sometimes what you thought was lost is just waiting to be reborn. Today, I still play basketball. Not professionally, not with pressure, not for recognition, but I play because I love it, because it feeds something in me that still matters. And guess what? That makes me no less of a player. In fact, it makes me more me than ever. And you. You also have the right to keep loving what you love, even if it's no longer your job, even if it looks different now, even if no one's watching. You can reconnect to what fuels you without chasing performance, without proving anything to anyone. You can create a new version of yourself without betraying the one you used to be. So go ahead. Let yourself feel again. Explore, experiment, redefine. And remember, just because you've left the stage doesn't mean you've left the passion. This is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of a freer, fuller, more aligned chapter. Thank you for listening to this episode of Pure Exchange. If something here spoke to you, please share it with someone who might be going through their own transition, someone who's questioning, rebuilding, reimagining. And if you want to tell me your story, if you want to react, connect, or suggest a topic, you know where to find me. Instagram, YouTube, or real life. We're here to share, to grow, to rebuild together. See you soon. Peace.